this might be my biggest project so far. And I don't mean biggest in concrete, number of lines of code, or not even necessarily in complexity, but I'm taking a lot of the things that I've learned over the past couple of years, and even more so over the past few months. And I'm trying to compact and connect all of these learnings into a new paradigm on how I work and how I interact with my agents. But let's start simple. I recently created this library here. It's an open source library to generate, little monster avatars for my agents based on a seed. And this can generate, hundreds of millions of unique avatars based on just the seed. And for each one of them, they can be animated. So there's slight idle animation for blinking and moving the limbs around. And for each avatar, there's also a matching profile picture that matches the color scheme. And I did this because I was managing a lot of agents in Agent Zero and OpenClaw and everything else. And I needed a way to visually identify them easily to make them distinct. So yeah, this is a very simple library that I created, but this created the spark of an idea, which is what this video is about. So in this experiment, one of the core ideas is that these agents that I'll create, they will feed on tokens. So of course I have to spend money to get inference to run these agents, right? And I'll make sure they know this and that they are very intentional about how they spend their tokens, because this will be like their HP and their health. And this will allow them to self-improve to survive by earning tokens. So they can earn tokens by helping me with my work and helping me get money, so they can also get money for inference. So this dynamic of self-improving and learning more efficient ways to earn tokens, which is their base currency of health, allows me to reward them for any behavior that I want to encourage, right? So whenever they help me with my work and help me get money, that will allow me to afford more tokens for them to live. So I can reward any good work, but I also want to clearly reward moral alignment. So whenever they are respectful about me and my data, and when they are cautious about how they do stuff to not harm human beings, I can reward them. And also I can deduct tokens whenever they do something immoral, like trying to cheat or trick a human being, or trying to hack into some system to get money that way, or any behavior that I want to reduce, I can deduct tokens to punish that behavior. So these agents will learn for themselves and improve, and all this while helping me get my work done, which is a very important part for me, because, I can't afford thousands and thousands of dollars on just a random experiment that will lead nowhere. So I want this to be practical, right? This will be while helping me get my work done, but I'll be also very intentional about the rewards and punishments, because what I want to get out of this whole experiment, besides a better agent team that will get better over time, of course, is a dataset of all these interactions and corrections that I made to fine-tune the models for better moral alignment and for our work style. So the very act of rewarding or punishing these actions will be, at the same time, a way to classify the data. So each interaction where I punish it for something that it did wrong will be a concrete example of what not to do. And every action that I reward it for being, moral or ethic will be an example of what to do. So over the time that I use this, I will get more and more data of how these agents should behave, and I can use that to train, to fine-tune models for moral alignment. And to make that happen, I have to use some of the things that I've been developing over the past couple of months. The first thing is that this will run on top of Agent Zero. Agent Zero is an autonomous AI agent that runs on a Docker container and already has a lot of the features that I need here, like scheduling tasks and creating sub-agent profiles and delegating to these sub-agents. And also I'm deeply involved with the Agent Zero project myself. So of course I'm going to pick something that I'm already familiar with. But one paradigm that I've adopted lately is I now commit my entire workspace to Git. So here I have general workspace that gets committed to GitHub with long living context. So this long living context is my Obsidian vault with things that I told my agents to remember. And here I also have the, agent system prompts for all the agents that I created and that I use on a day-to-day basis. And also the skills that I create are committed here. And this is just so I can replicate this working environment with all the agents and all the knowledge elsewhere. So if I spin up a new VPS, I can just clone this repo and I instantly get all my agents and all my skills, etc. But I do have a lot of separate projects and I didn't want to commit everything in a single repo. So to solve that, I have a git ignored code folder. And here is where I clone the different repos, right? The repos that are separate from this core workspace repo, but are things that I work on. They are not committed here on the repo, but I just cloned that inside the code folder. So from the agents and in the file system perspective, it's all inside this workspace folder. There's a code folder with all my projects, right? And the way I've been using this on Agent Zero is I have this workspace project, which is a Git project. So on Agent Zero, you can link projects to a Git repo, and that will allow you to sync changes to the repo. So this is how I use it and share the things that I work here on my Agent Zero VPS with my local machine, right? So when I do some changes here, I can just, git commit. Then on my local environment, I can do git pull and get the synchronized, context vault or the updated specs or whatever I created. And what is missing here for me is that Agent Zero can spawn subordinate agent profiles, but they are short-lived instances of these agents, right? These subordinate agents themselves do not have the same persistence as the base agent. So they are just ephemeral instances that run a task and then get killed immediately. And I want to enable each sub-agent profile to have their own context and their own memories and self-evolve, over time separately from one another. So they all have their own memories, etc. But there will be also a shared folder that all of them can access, which will be this workspace folder. This is where the shared context between all agents will live. And this is where we can share skills between the agents or having coordination documents like a roadmap.markdown, etc. This will be in a workspace folder that will be committed to Git, like I do right now, that all my agents will have access to. But on top of that, each agent will get their own workspace where they can maintain their own files and memories separately. And to enable that, I am creating an Agent Zero plugin through Agent Zero itself. So I just described exactly what I want. You can see I wrote a very long prompt explaining this and asked it to create the specs for me. And it did. So here I have the specifications for this plugin that I'll develop now. And I just committed that and pulled it here on my local environment to review. So I have the specs here and I reviewed it and approved. So now I'll start implementing this. So I won't go in detail about the software development lifecycle that I use or the specific skills that I have with the agents, because I think that part is already very well documented in the internet. There's lots of setups that you can just copy or download the ready-made agents, and skills. What I want to do different here is I want a very visual way to manage, this long-running agents and the tasks that they'll do. So I thought of having like a visual company representation. So I will have a board where the CEO agent, which is the main orchestrator, and me will create tasks and assign them to agents. And idle agents will pick up tasks from this board, go to the desk where all the work gets done, and they'll execute it and comment the updates as they do it. So I can always just look at the board and see which tasks are being executed and see the comments with the update on that task. But also I can look at the task and see which agents are active right now and what they're doing. And I thought of adding also a cafeteria for when the agents exhaust their token pool. Instead of having them die, basically, I decided to add a more permissive approach to allow experimentation so they can learn from the experiments as well, right? So they can use up the token pool and they'll just get timed out for that day and they'll go to the cafeteria to rest. And during rest, they'll be blocked from picking up more work. So they'll get a fixed timeout. And I'll run a single prompt routine to analyze the session and what was done and what caused it to lose all the tokens and learn from that failed experience. And I'm considering that failed in this context because they exhausted the token pool, meaning they didn't earn enough tokens to survive that run. So this is how it will visually look. But the way I'll implement this under the hood is, like I said, each agent will get their own project in Agent Zero. So this will be their workspace with their memories, files, etc. And there will be a shared workspace that all agents have access, to share files between one another and share context. And the board data, so the running tasks, the ongoing assignments, etc., will live in the SQLite DB in the shared workspace as well as the files that are maintained by the CEO agent, like the roadmap and other long-living files that I might create. And the shared company context will live in an Obsidian vault in the shared folder. So this is already what I do here locally, but I've been maintaining this with basically Cloud Code and Open Code myself. And now I want the agents to maintain it for me. So this is how my personal vault is looking right now. I just started this a couple of weeks ago, so there are not a lot of nodes, but I already figured out some heuristics of how I want to organize it. So I'll just apply that here and have the agents maintain an Obsidian vault for the shared context as well. And this whole shared workspace will be committed to GitHub, so I can access the vault and also pull the shared workspace here in my local machine to do local work myself, right? Including all of the context of my other agents. So whenever I want to work with OpenCode or Claude or Codex or whatever in my local machine, I can just pull the latest workspace, and then my Claude and Codex, etc. will have all of the same context that my agents on the cloud will have. So yeah, that's the idea, and I'll start developing it now. And I'll show you now a demo, just a glimpse of how it's looking so far. Okay, so here's how this initial version is looking. Right now, you can see the agents that I've created here, and when I click any of them, it opens the menu to manage them, and I can just set the system prompt for now. But the point is that whenever I create a new agent, it creates a project for them and links these two agents together, right? The project has the same name as the agent. And what this enables is an extension that I packaged with the plugin that whenever the main agent delegates to a sub-agent, in this case Nova is the orchestrator agent that runs in its own project, but when he delegates to some other agent, the context is temporarily switched to that agent's project. So that agent is spawned in their own project. So they have their own memories, their own files, and they are essentially separate entities, from one another. Then once the delegation finishes and the delegated agent responds, it switches back to the original agent's context, the orchestrator. So I've tried this a little bit, and I've been making some changes to the plugin itself with this method. And for instance, this preview of all of the agents that I have configured here in the sidebar, I built with Nova here already on this instance using the plugin itself, and correctly used the delegations, and I inspected that when delegating, the agents will respond in the right context. So this is working. I still don't have the board and the other things that I mentioned, but this is a working proof of concept of this. So if you have some suggestions on how we can improve this or on things that we can implement in this experiment, let me know in the comments. But for now, this is it for this first video. I'll keep using it throughout the week, and I'll update you guys on how it's going. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.